If you've ever visited Europe and then come back to an American suburb, something feels off. The houses look different, lighter somehow, more temporary. And if you've ever been through a hurricane, a tornado, or watched the news after one, you've probably wondered, why on earth are American houses made of wood? Brick seems so much more solid, so much more permanent. So what gives? The answer goes back centuries, and it's more fascinating than you'd expect. Let's start with the obvious: raw materials. When European settlers arrived in North America in the 1600s, they didn't find open plains first. They found trees, endless, massive, ancient forests stretching from the Atlantic coast all the way inland. Timber was everywhere. It was free, it was fast to work with, and you didn't need to be a skilled mason to build with it. A settler could fell a tree, mill it into planks, and have walls up within days. Europe, by contrast, had been deforesting itself for thousands of years. By the Middle Ages, timber was scarce and expensive across much of the continent. Stone and brick, materials that were durable, locally available, and didn't require forests, became the natural solution. And once those building traditions were established, they stuck. So the foundation of this difference isn't culture, it's geography and resource availability. Here's where it gets really interesting. In 1833, a man named Augustine Taylor built a church in Chicago using a new technique that would change American construction forever. Instead of heavy timber frames joined by complex hand-cut joints, which required skilled craftsmen and took months, he used cheap, machine-cut lumber nailed together in a lightweight grid. Walls, floors, and roofs made of thin, standardized boards, all held together by mass-produced nails. This was called balloon framing, and it was a revolution. Suddenly, you didn't need a master carpenter to build a house. You needed basic skills, cheap lumber, and factory nails. As America expanded westward at breakneck speed, filling in the frontier, building new towns almost overnight, balloon framing was exactly what the moment called for. You could throw up a house fast and cheap. Brick and stone construction required time, skill, and heavy materials that were hard to transport across the frontier. America didn't just choose wood. Wood chose the pace of American expansion. Let's talk money, because this is still a factor today. Wood is significantly cheaper than brick or concrete. A wood frame house in the US costs roughly 15 to 20% less to build than an equivalent masonry structure. Labor is faster, materials are lighter, and the entire supply chain, from the lumberyard to the framing crew, is optimized for wood construction. The US also has one of the most sophisticated softwood lumber industries in the world. Douglas fir, southern yellow pine, and spruce are grown, harvested, and milled at massive scale. Standardized lumber sizes mean everything. Studs, joists, beams is designed to fit together by default. In Europe, the opposite infrastructure exists. Brick factories, skilled masonry trades, building codes written around masonry, all of it creates a system where brick is the default, and switching would actually cost more, not less. In construction, the cheapest option tends to win, and the cheapest option is whichever one the entire industry is already set up to deliver. Now here's something that surprises people. In earthquake zones, wood is actually better than brick. Brick and masonry are rigid. When the ground shakes, rigid structures crack, crumble, and collapse. Wood is flexible. It sways, it bends, and it absorbs seismic energy without shattering. California, Japan, and other earthquake-prone regions have strict codes that actually favor wood frame or steel construction over masonry precisely because of this. Climate plays a role too. America's climate is extreme and wildly varied. Freezing Minnesota winters, scorching Texas summers, humid Florida heat. Wood, with proper insulation, handles these swings well and is easier to insulate than solid masonry walls. Europe's climate, particularly in the northwest, is milder and more consistent. Thick stone and brick walls act as natural thermal mass. They absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night, keeping interiors comfortable without much active heating or cooling. Different climates, different optimal materials. This is why our American houses made of wood, because the continent had forests when Europe had none, because a revolution in cheap framing techniques arrived just as America needed to build fast. Because wood is cheaper, faster, and, in the right disasters, actually safer than brick. And because once an entire industry, economy, and building code system grows up around the material, it becomes almost impossible to switch.